Peace and grand rising to the sovereign, original, indigenous, natural divine heirs. Today is February 27th, 1442 on the ancient moon calendar, 1441 on the ancient sun calendar, and 2022 on the Greco-Roman calendar, and 5782 on the ancient Jewish calendar, and 1443 on the civil Islamic calendar. Okay. All rise and stand. This is a sovereign, living, ancient Al-Moroccan, Moorish American, court action. We are the sovereign living justices in capitis nationall, in red ink, in propria persona juris, in proprio solo, in proprio heredes. All Moors are the original indigenous, sovereign, ancient Al-Moroccan, Moorish American ascendants of the great pharaohs of Kemet and of the ancient Moabites and Canaanites. Our full faith and trust, our allegiance, our credit, and our energy are hereby vested in ourselves. For we are the people who are the original indigenous, natural divine, ancient empire state of Morocco, and the de jure Moorish National Republic federal government, the universal Moorish American consulate, and the Article 3 Moorish American consular court. We are peace. We are one nation. We are one state. We are one empire, and we are one God. We hereby exercise all sovereign rights at this time and at all points in time. Nunc pro tunc. So the first the first order of business, I want to put two scriptures up, one from the Holy Quran, chapter 29, verse 1, and one from Isaiah 48:17 to preface the laws and the information that's going to be coming forth in this sovereign congressional meeting. Holy Quran chapter 29 verse 1 says, O thou, the favorite of heaven, whom the Son of Men, thy equals, have agreed to raise to sovereign power and set as a ruler over themselves. That is who we are. We are the favorite of heaven. We are the sovereign power. We are the rulers on the earth. Isaiah 48:17, thus saith the law, who is thy Redeemer, to the Holy Ones of Israel, the law shall teach thee to profit, which leadeth you to the way that you shall go. That's Isaiah 48:17. We are the law. We are the Holy Ones. We are our own Redeemers. And it is the law that will teach us to profit, P-R-O-F-I-T, which means to make money and to have money left over and to have money to do whatever it is that we need to do. So with that being said, I want to place a link in the chat and bring a story to our attention that's going to assist us in further properly proclaiming our vast estate, as well as the process by which the claiming of the land is done. In order for us to know how to claim land and to claim domiciles and to claim property properly, we have to know what happened initially in order for us to think that the land no longer belongs to us. So I want us to look at a story that recently came up in the news because it is the story is about Moors. However, they are sleeping Moors and they are completely unaware of what's being shown to them. And this same thing that's being shown to them is being shown to all of us about our land and about who we are. So I want to put this story on the screen so we can take a look at it, because there's a lot going on with it that we need to see and hear so that we know how to fix and remedy the things that are going on our land. So let me just make sure that we can all hear and that we can see it. Okay. Okay, can you see the newscaster there on the screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. The title of this story that came out yesterday at 11:41 a.m. Meridian. It says Clark County family searches for more information about land where ancestors were enslaved. And we'll break down the meaning of what really happened so that we know how to fix it. So let's listen to this story. And let me know if you can hear it in the chat as well.
As Black History Month continues, tonight Channel 7 is in Clark County, where a former plantation plays a significant role in one family's past and perhaps the future. This region has more on this piece of land where the family's ancestors were once slaves. Imagine growing up, hearing stories about the family's history, but not being able to find the facts. But then a historical landmark, the name on it, is put up. Just outside of Arkadelphia, there's this sign marking a historic landmark, but it is more than modern drowning. You know, I see it, but it just makes me feel some kind of way. Oh, one minute, it's like the Burroughs family heritage, a legacy his grandfather and great uncle shared. They own two things. It was all about it, and I remember so vividly looking at it over and over and over. How many was in the family, and how many what they had, and how many people bombing, and the bombing is sessionne. We did a lot of research on our family, but then you get to a place where you don't know where else to go to find the information that's needed, so that's just where you stop, and that's where you stay. Back in 2004, the Clark County Historical Association made this an historical marker, but Timothy Yarborough claimed some family members weren't aware of it until later. All I ever heard was about the fall of the big town to farm, and they had a good deal and a cotton gin and all this. And a big family too, about 18 a big family is not too far from his too. Arkansas Tech University Assistant Professor of History, Dr. Kelly Jones, says the Bullock Plantation is known for its very farm.
When the plantation exists, and when they're people us to have over 50 enslaved people out there, that's an incredible amount of wealth.
Jones says the slave owners Tom Bullock came to Arkansas during the mid to late 1840s in the midst of the cotton boom and created this plantation. He says Bullock's daughter's memoir shares stories from her perspective.
If anybody wants to go get that memoir, I would say treat it carefully because it is the romanticized remembrances of a elderly white woman who's nostalgic about her childhood, and that childhood includes the captivity of people of African descent.
What's not in the memoir is this United States Census on a plantation during 1860, where slave names weren't listed, but there were 7 homes or cabins that the Bullock slaves lived. Jones says this land operated for 25 years before the Civil War.
We would say for midway through the war, the function of this plantation is destroyed by the enslaved people taking off.
Jones says he doesn't have any other information after that time period or knowledge of any other local descendants. Right now, none of the current Bullock family in Clark County own the land. This is Ronnie hopes to fulfill someday. My childhood dream, all through growing up here to the age I am now. I always want to have a nice time. It's what kind of time. Just to have one more time. There are many descendants of the Bullock family in Clark County today. None of us have ever seen the name for the color. On his guide, is the next money to learn more about Plantation.
Okay. So, can anyone tell me some things that you heard in the story that stood out so that we can discuss what happened and how it is that they're saying that they're enslaved and that the land that they don't own the land?
Timberline Bay,
Islam,
Los Angeles Territory.
Grand Rising. Can anyone tell me what you see in terms of these people looking at this sign put up with not a family name, but a sovereign appellation, a sovereign-born appellation that they're calling a name up on the sign, and how they feel like they don't own the land and that they're trying to buy it back and all of this? Okay. So,
Islam.
Go ahead, Nobility.
They don't know themselves, so they don't know that they own the land, and they don't know the process. If they knew the process, then they can reclaim the land in their name, in their heritage, in their bloodline. Islam.
Thank you. It's a process. That's all they're lacking is the knowledge, the information. You saw the land, no one's on it. They got a big old sign right up there saying who the land belongs to. If it was a matter of paying some fiat to get the land, then somebody else would have came and got it. But it was marked with a historic marker so that that wouldn't happen, so that no one could come and just claim it and say, I'm going to pay $4 million, $4.5 million Federal Reserve debt notes for this land right here. So it's not about the fiat, or the historical society could have bought it. It's not about the fiat. So in the story, first let's talk about the sign. This is what the sign said. It said, after the Battle of Jenkins Ferry, General Joseph O. Shelby, General John S. Marmaduke, and Colonel Colton Green established their headquarters in various outbuildings on the plantation of Colonel Charles Bullock. Here they probably planned their Missouri campaign, probably. The soldiers camped at the plantation for 2 or more weeks the 1st of May, 1864. When they left, the grounds were scrapped, and the rest of that sentence says, when they left, the grounds were scraped clean and the trash burned. That's what the rest of that sign says. And then it lists the historical society who put the sign up. Now, let's talk about the meaning of civil war, because we've been hearing a lot about them saying, oh, I think we're going to have a civil war. I think we're going to have a civil war. A civil war, on that sign, it doesn't say anything about guns. It does talk about some things being burned, though. What do you think was being burned, scrapped and burned, that wasn't there, that was there when those guys got there? When the foreign, modern Europeans, calling themselves Colonel this and General that, when they got there at that plantation, first of all, the sleeping Moors, the Bullocks whom we honor, were already there. So how is it not their land? And then what happened to make it change hands, supposedly? All those people did, those foreign military people, and it wasn't but 3 of them. It was 3 people who came there saying, oh, it's a war, we need your help. We need to stay here and set up here, which is unconstitutional, by the way, because you cannot house military in times of peace. But we Moors, I'm going to say we because our ancestors and all of that happened, we let some foreigners stay on our land, and they were warring, and we were not supposed to let them stay if they're warring because our land is a peaceful land. So what did they do? Because they came with an agenda. The agenda was, and we're not mad at them. We should not have ever supported war on our land. So what happened? They came and they all of a sudden started writing things down. They started recording documents and names and measuring the temple. That's biblical. They started saying how many people are doing this, how many people are doing that, which plats of land are they farming. And just like the man said in the video, he said that they started talking about how many family members were on this part of the land, how many were on that part of the land. They even took a census. Now, in their census, they could not put the names of the Moors because Moors don't have names. We have appellations. It was our job to put our appellations and everything that has to do with us on the public record. That was our job. And so we have some responsibility in our own enslavement, because where did the enslavement happen? In the story, you saw photos of their grandfather who does not look like a slave. Look at this man. He's not in chains. He's not half dressed. He's well dressed. He has on a nice shirt and a nice pair of pants and a baseball cap of some kind. It almost looks like a military uniform, if you ask me. He's well dressed. So we know then that the slave stories that we've been told about what slaves look like is not true. This man is not a slave. But what did the paper say? What happened was some United States Corporation Company people, 3 of them, yeah, all it took was 3 to show up on this huge plantation and say there's a war going on. 3 people showed up saying we're the government. We need to be housed here with you. Well, if they're coming there to be housed because they're setting up some headquarters, why are they interested in who's on the farm and all of that? Why are they writing all of that down? Why are they taking a census of how many Moors are there? Why? Because the Moors were not writing down what they needed to write down the way we are today. They needed to put documents on the public record that state clearly who they are. And they need to put land titles on the record of who they are. The beautiful thing about the story is that it's not too late, because we do everything non pro tunc, which means now for them, because we're sovereign like that. We can do that. We must be because only states can record documents on the public record and then be acknowledged by other states. States talk to states, corporations talk to corporations, people talk to people, nations speak to nations, governments speak to governments.
It's AB, Illinois territory.
Grand Rising, nobility, welcome. Governments speak to governments. So, in order for our state, in order for proper claiming of the land to take place, the Moors have always been the state, always been the state. And when we stopped knowing that, then another state, which is a corporate dead state, came in and started recording everything and putting it on the public record, writing it down and publishing it. And it's just a matter of proper documentation put on the public record. That's the process to get the land back into their physical possession. They have proof that it's theirs, and guess what? There's not a single Moor out here who cannot go onto the internet and find land patents in their family name. Not one of us. If you have a mother or a father, and we all have a mother, then you look up her appellation, her last appellation. Now, we're going to show you how to do that. So, and then we're going to show you what to do in order to get the land back in your possession legally and lawfully. And so that way the marker can stay up because it's correct. And you can thank those historical societies for keeping the records that their people made. Those are their records. We can look at their records and then make our own records, create and craft our own documents. Okay? That's what we're actually supposed to do. This is a test. We're supposed to look at it, look at the situation, and then create the law by affidavit that applies by looking at what they did and then uncorrupting it. Look at these census records on the screen. Look at this census record on the screen. It's not very clear. It wasn't very clear initially. Just one moment. Yeah, let me pull that up. All they did for the Moors is just put these tick marks to show how many were there. They just put tick marks in the census to show how many were on the land, how many Moors were on the land. So now, for the Moors that are on this call, and for the Moors that are watching this, all plantations took a census at one point or another. So we can go back into any census record and pull up the sovereign-born appellation. For example, mine is Richie and Moore and Emmanuel or Manuel, and you pull it up in all the different spellings because our ancestors from one generation to the next, they spelled it the way they wanted to spell it. It's still all our land. Still. But you can always start with the spelling that you use today. And then
Helen Crowder,
go on to Grand Rising is welcome. Thank you for being here, Islam. And then when you go on to the public record, you can see land just like that. Grand Rising nobility. Thank you all for coming. Welcome. So here's some of the facts about that story. They state in the story that the bullocks were already on the land, and then in 1860 or 1840, the modern Europeans showed up on the land, and then all of a sudden the modern Europeans are the landowners out of nowhere, seemingly. It's not out of nowhere. All they did was put the proper documentation on the public record by way of the United States Corporation Company. That's it. And because they did it that way,
konsulate,
it was acknowledged by all the other states. Fact number 2, there were far more bullocks than there were foreigners, but the foreigners strategized with their foreign military actor corporate companions to use semantic word deceit to induce the Moors into the war that the Moors had no reason to even be in. But because they amalgamated by letting them into their home like that when they were wearing military uniforms, and it's a difference between, I'm not saying don't let modern Europeans into your home, I'm saying don't let them in there if they're on business like that, military business, saying we need to stay here because we're at war. That's what I'm saying. It says the Moors bear the responsibility not to amalgamate nor engage in war action, so we must restore the peace and reclaim our estates. So the remedy to this, first let's look at where we can find records. There are a number of places. We can look anywhere and find record after record after record with anyone with our last appellation on it. You know, I can look anywhere in just about all 50 of the territories and find Richies everywhere. And it doesn't matter what they look like, because again, the original Richies looked like us. Period. As far back in ancient times, 10,000, 15, 20,000, 100,000, 500,000 years ago, they looked like us. So we can go to anywhere to include the historical society. And again, we're not going there warring because those are their records. They kept records. We have to keep our own records too. And thankfully, many more are doing that. They're putting their documents on the public record and then just publishing them out and sharing them with other Moors. We've done that quite a few times, and we've actually been doing that the whole time along the way. It's sharing our documents and our records with other Moors so that they can see how to do them and you know how to get their documents on the public record. So, let me make sure my turban is straight. So, okay, we can even go to Glow Records. Now, this is the place that I would encourage all Moors to go to. Is here, and we'll go here right now. Glow Records, .blm.gov, Bureau of Land Management Records. And we've done this before, but we're going to do it again since we're talking about the remedies. So we can see what remedy for ourselves looks like, because again, we can save ourselves here. So let me put that on the screen. We absolutely can save ourselves and get back all that belongs to us. So this is where you would go to find your family record. And I'm using the word family, spelling it a little bit differently so that we know what family means. In our case, it does not mean servant. It means our bloodline and birthright. We spell it family Famile or EE or YE or however else we want to spell it. PHAMILY, however the Moors choose to. So we would go to this General Land Office record here online, and then you would click on Land Patents. Why do you click on Land Patents? Because let me go back to that page and just read to you really quickly what that's all about. It says, federal land patents offer researchers a source of information on the initial transfer of land titles from the federal government to individuals. In addition to verifying title transfer, this information will allow the researcher to associate an individual, patentee, assignee, warranty, widow, or heir with a specific location, legal land description and time, issue date. We have a variety of land patents on our site, including cash entry, homestead, and military warrant patents. And again, they're all kind of like, they're military documents, whether we want to believe that or not. That's what the Civil War means. It means the changing of the document by hostile or deceptive means. And it's really not deceptive when we know what that looks like. We can't be deceived when we know who we are and when we know that the writing and the letters that they use and the letters being issued by the United States Corporation Company are not what we use. So we lean them to stop them from doing that. And then our sovereign state takes over the lettering. And then we can take those same documents, look at them, and create our own. And here, this is the key right here. The land title from the federal government to individuals. That is how land is transferred. That's how titles are transferred from government to the individual. Who's the government? The Moors. They're the government. And according to the Montevideo Convention of 1933, a government is part of a state. All states must have a government. We have that. The Empire State of Morocco, our government is the Moorish National Republic federal government. Someone asked me to, I was discussing some of these things today with one of the justices, and the question came up about the temples and how there has to be a connection with the temples. We absolutely are part and parcel of the unincorporated Moorish Science Temple of America and Moorish Holy Temple of Science, and actually the Moorish Holy Temple of Science specifically, unincorporated, as well as the Old Canaanite Temple. Those are the original temples for our government. The charter, our official charter for our sovereign unincorporated temple is the Holy Quran of the Moorish Holy Temple of Science, and it's written in red here on the document. This is the cover of that book. It is divinely prepared by the noble prophet jure. That's the charter. So we got that covered. We got that part covered. So now let's look at, we'll just pull up a land patent or two. Now it says here state, but we can do it by any state and any county. And is there anyone on the call that would like for me to look theirs up? Islam. If you could speak up just a little bit, nobility, so we can hear you.
Yes, Reuben Hassan Bright Bay, Algiers
Yes.
Territory, Paris.
Grand Rising, nobility. And what is the last name?
Degree, or you can spell it Degru, D-E-G-R-U.
It's
Those are my answers.
D-E-G-R-U?
Yes.
Okay, is that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 letters?
Well, it's separate. It's like D-E and then G-R-U, G-R-U, or you can spell it G-R-E-E, which is degree, which is my grandmother's grandmother's name, all the way back to the
Okay.
1500s.
Can you see the screen, nobility? Because I'm going to put it in here, and I want you to just let me know if it is spelled correctly.
Okay.
Can you see it on the screen there?
Yeah, D-E-G-R-U. Yes, that's it.
Okay. So leave it with the 2 E's.
Without the E.
Without the E?
Yeah, without the E, because a lot of us was a degree. And like Latin,
okay.
the vowels was interchangeable. So as time went on, we became degree.
Yes, that was what we were stating earlier, is use the different spellings, because over the years the spellings changed. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And then try it with and without the DE.
Right.
But we'll try it with, and it's G as in go, R as in ready, and U as in united. Correct?
Yeah, G as in
Okay.
Daisy, E as in elephant, D as in George, R as in Reuben, U as in umbrella.
Okay. All right, so let's take a look here and search patents and see if we come up with something here.
Okay.
Okay, there was nothing found with that spelling of it.
Right. Try degree.
So let's go. I would say with nobility, in cases like this, 9 times out of 10 they put these two together.
Okay. Let's try that.
They would always do that.
Okay.
So let's look that up and see if something comes up there.
All right.
Okay, there was nothing that came up there, and you said D-E-G-R-U-E?
Oh, D-E-G-R-E-E.
Yeah, okay. Let's try that one. Okay, it didn't come up with anything there. So now I'm going to try it where it doesn't have the D-E.
Okay.
And see if we get anything there. Plenty of things came up with G-R-U-E.
Yeah.
Plenty.
Wow.
That happened a lot because there's plenty of land here. Tell me, and I'll just ask you a couple of quick questions. The states that are listed here are Idaho, Montana, South Dakota. I believe this is Minnesota. Let's see, South Dakota, Idaho, Minnesota. Do you have any relatives in any of these places? And it doesn't necessarily have to be that you have relatives in these places, because we moved a lot.
Yeah, I have people in Chicago, Illinois. I have Milwaukee. But, you know, like the Louisiana Purchase, because we are French, so we were spread out all over the place. So our land is big from the Louisiana Purchase, because I'm from New Orleans, Paris, not Paris. It's the H. I took the H off, so I know we're from
that's
Paris.
Islam.
Yes.
So the borders were not what they were not the political borders that we see on a map today.
Correct. It reached all the way
okay.
from
So now, we say again, nobility?
I said the Louisiana Purchase reached from Louisiana to Washington, Seattle, Washington.
Yes,
Territory.
all the way up here.
Yeah.
Islam.
So, yeah.
I'm at Seattle territory.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Now, you have plenty of land here listed. Mm-hmm. That is land in your family name. So some will say, well, how do you know that you all are related to the names you see? Because we were the only landowners here. There were no other landowners on the land but the Moors.
Correct.
And some will dispute that, but since antiquity, we had the land. And even today, we have gone through the process, and we have lower court or inferior court as witnesses. We have the title to all land, all natural resources, and all commerce. And it is witnessed by 2 inferior courts. And not in black ink either. They put it in the ink they were supposed to put it in. Yeah. So all land belongs to us anyway. Now let's pull up a land patent and see what it says, and then we'll show you. Because see, essentially on the sign that was in the story that we saw at the beginning of this call, on that sign, that might as well be a land patent itself, basically. The sign is an open admission that the land does not belong to the ones who are claiming to own it. It says that people came in and burned some paperwork. That's what they did. They burned the documents that we're putting on the public record now. They just burned the family documents.
Yeah, call them massacres. Yeah.
Yep, that's all they did, was burn the family documents. And when they say scraped clean, that means they took the information. They didn't clean up the place. They cleaned out the information and burned it.
Islam.
All the wills, the titles, the land titles, etc. Go ahead, Nobility. Yes.
In Islam, they put it in their trust, claim trust over as their estate.
Yes. Yes. So I want to pull up one or two of these plots. Let's pull up. So we have here, this is absolutely your family's land. It is absolutely your family's land. And what needs to be done now is, let's look at the patent.
Okay.
Because see, the sign in the beginning of this story tells you how the foreigners came here and they took our names. We didn't take their names.
Yeah, yeah.
And they put our names in their books.
Yeah.
That's what happened. And see, here's the thing about capitalism, because see, all they were doing was practicing capitalism on the Moors. When you put it, when the documents that claim ownership are being put out by a state, that state is claiming ownership, and if it's not properly rebutted, then it's, see, this is the patent right here on the screen. Let's take a look at it and see if we can widen this screen, or at least bring it up a little bit. And I'll just save it and then open it up so we can look at the whole thing. Let me make sure you can see it as well.
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, you can see it? Okay. So now, we know who put this record. It says it right there at the top, who put it out, the United States of America in black ink.
And kept it in this minimum.
That's a corporation that did that. It's a corporation. Okay. And this was done, let's see if there's a year on here, because they all have a year. Okay. Let's see. This was done on the 18th of July in the year 1910, so 1910.
My grandmother was born.
Okay. Go ahead, now, Billy. Say again.
My grandmother was born in 1910.
Of course. Of course. Of course she was. Of course she was. Yeah. This is the patent number. This is a court action. How do we know that this is a court action? Because it says, to all to whom these presents shall come, greetings. It's a court action. This is done by a court. And when it's done by a court, it's going to have, this is what, it has what should be a seal, but there's no seal. That's how you know that this document is incomplete. And that it should, that whoever it is that's claiming this land must present a document that has a seal on it. And this was signed by the one doing business as William Taft.
Not the president, huh?
Yes, yes, that one. The one that was doing business as William Taft. It says it right here.
Okay.
Okay. This is absolutely your family land. We were the only ones who owned land. And they're telling you in the story that we saw at the beginning of this call how these came about. They have a census that they did on most of our plantations, because the plantations actually belong to the Moors. And it says here, the United States of America, it says, whereas Hans Groom, this is an affidavit. All the affidavits back then started with whereas this and whereas that. These are declarations which are done and sealed by a court. Has deposited, that means it's money, in the General Land Office of the United States a certificate of the Register of the Land Office at Pierre, South Dakota, whereby it appears that full payment has been made by the said Hans Group. According to the provisions of the Act of Congress of the 24th of April, 1820, entitled an act making further provision for the sale of the public land, and the act supplemental thereto for the lots 3 and 4 and the east half, and it just goes back into meets and bounds. That's what this is. It tells you it's at the southwest quarter of Section 7 in Township 6, north of Range 24, east of the Black Hills Meridian, South Dakota, containing 155 and 5,500 acres. 155 and 5,500 acres. According to the official plot of the survey of the said land, returned to the General Land Office by the Surveyor General, which said tract has been purchased by the said Hans Group. Now, if this was done in 1910, it says right here, 1910,
Mm-hmm. Right.
The Federal Reserve Act did not happen until 1913. So what kind of money was Hans Group using? He wasn't using Federal Reserve debt notes, so you can't get it back using Federal Reserve debt notes.
We have to get it back.
You got to get it back the way it was given. Say again, ability?
Gold back dollars.
Of course. Of course. Just like gold back Moorish sovereign dollars, you must use your own. It has to be state money because it has to come from a government to go back to the Moors. So
Right.
for those who want the land to come back to them, your government has to give it back. Your federal government. Because the others are not a government. That's not a government, that's a corporation.
So
we give the land back to ourselves using the right process.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
And the right money. And the conveyance method is through your government.
The empire.
Because you have to rebut the fakes that are calling themselves government. Say again, nobility.
I said I must get it back to the Empire State of Morocco.
Yes, yes. And then the state just says, here you go, that's yours, through a process.
Yes.
And the process really is a court action process, because the documents have to be correct. Now, I'll say this about the court action process. The inferior courts will agree when the process is correct.
Okay.
The inferior courts will agree when the process is correct. What do I mean by the inferior courts? All of those courts that we lean because they were first acting in a corporate status, and we're saying, nope, we don't do corporations on this land unless they originate with us. That's number one. Number two, anybody else that's doing anything on this land is subject to the Moors. That's what the liens tell them. That's what the liens tell them.
Okay.
So you have to lien the United States Corporation Company.
I have.
We have to take care of them first and put them in their proper place so that when they see the documents coming through, then they will tell all of their people what to do. And when we get the processes correct, they will do exactly as commanded. They will. We're seeing it all the time. And then if there's anything that we do that is not proper protocol, that is not done properly, then they have their ways of letting us know that it hasn't been done properly. Some Moors don't want to go through the process of being told that that the process is not right, but you don't get what you want until the process is correct. And we're not obligated to them. We're obligated to ourselves and to our state and to our heirs to get it right. So this here, the lettering, the capitalization, this is the United States Corporation Company capitalizing everything, and then they will turn right around and tell you. Down here at the bottom, it says that in testimony whereof, testimonies are given in court. That's how another reason why we know that this is a court action. And that's what we've been saying by don't fill out their forms, speak by affidavit. Let it be a court action when you speak, because you have to get it back the way that it was taken. They didn't use fiat to take it either. And it says here, in testimony whereof, I, William H. Taft, President of the United States of America, have caused these letters to be made patent. And when they say letters, he's not writing a letter. This is not a Dear John letter. He's talking about the letters. In other words, they're patenting the black ink and the capital letters in the document and claiming the lettering. That's what they did. And we had to rebut that properly. Our fiduciary document does that. It'll be under this video. Our fiduciary document says no matter what color the letters are, when they're issued by us, they belong to us. And then we put the United States Corporation Company, the living one, the one in blue that we hired to do this in the first place, because we hired them. Whether we know it or not, we did. Or they wouldn't have been here, because nobody can do anything without our consent.
Right.
So, go ahead, Nobility.
Yes, I was doing my studies, and I see that the court action needs to be rebutted by me in lowercase letters in red ink, cancel all contracts, and presented on the record. Now, for me to move on after that, is there a time or a stipulation, or do I give them like 45 days before I move towards the land?
There's no time. There's no time limit. First of all, there's no time limit on any of these processes that we have to do. We can do them according to our own, because again, as I stated at the beginning of the call, all that we do is nunc pro tunc, or now for them. So we can set a time limit, but there's really no. You need to find out if there's even anything on the land. Here's what we do know about the land, and I know this without even looking the land up any further, but you can look it up further. Here in this document, it says right here, subject to any vested and accrued water rights for mining, agricultural, manufacturing, or other purposes, and rights to ditches, reservoirs used in connection with such water rights. It talks about anything that has to do with the land, okay? And when they start talking about water rights, all they needed to do was mention one natural resource, and that will entitle us to all natural resources. Of course, our bloodline is the first entitlement and most powerful entitlement. But when you see documents like this, if even one natural resource is mentioned, that includes all of them. So wherever there's water, there's going to be minerals and all types of valuable resources. So you're entitled to all of that. But the process must be correct when you do it.
Disagree.
Okay. And then, thank you, Nobility. Welcome. And it says here that this is all belonging unto the said Hans Gru and to his heirs and assigned forever, subject to any vested or accrued water rights for mining. For us, that's why we have the title that says all land, all natural resources, and all commerce. This is all of that. This is land, this is a natural resource document, and this is a commercial document because some funds pass hands. Okay, it says here whereby it appears that full payment has been made. So your ancestor made full payment for the land. That's why we say everything is prepaid. We are the only ones who have the authority to do that. And then all the United States Corporation Company was doing was right here at the bottom, recorder of the general land offices. They just record it. They don't own anything. They're not even claiming to own it. They just record it. So now what do we have to do to get it back? Record properly, proper recording, and it's done by court action. There has to be the components in the court action, such as being on letterhead. Look at their letterhead. It has a patent number. So the patent that you would create, because you want to rebut this patent, and then you also want to add your land title to your rebuttal. So you can create a patent with the same patent number, but where you have patent number, put this in all capital letters in red, and then put this number in red. So essentially, your patent can look just like this one in terms of the wording, but it's signed by, it's autographed by you, and it says here, given under my hand at the City of Washington. Now, given under my hand is another way, is a hypothecation of us using our right red thumbprint.
Okay.
Okay. And then there's no seal on here because they didn't have the authority to seal it. We have the authority to seal our affidavits and our court actions. This is why I say, this is why everything that we've been saying is encompassed in all the processes that people are trying to do to get things back, to recover all that is theirs. Okay? Even with a name, a family name like Hans Groove. Hans Groove, some people will say, well, that sounds German. Well, who are the original Germans? The Moors.
The Moors. Gretna, Louisiana was a birthplace of the Germans and the French.
Of course. Of course. Of course. See, now we know our history, so now we know how to get back our what was claimed to be our lost estate. It's not lost, it's still here. It hasn't gone anywhere. And no one else can claim it. But we gotta sit down and learn how to take it back. And remember how to take it back. Some are frustrated and they're running from place to place, trying to do process after process. We just have to sit down more, and you can look at these documents and the process and listen to the story that these modern Europeans put out on the news and see that what we've been saying is absolutely correct in how to get things back based on how it was taken.
Islam.
This is a test for us. We're not mad at them. This is a test for us. We're grateful that they, that the Historical Society put the sign up there so that the sovereign bullets could see it. But even in the story, they stated, one of the empresses in the story, and she probably doesn't know she's an empress. I don't know what they know because I don't know them. But I want to make sure that I honor them properly as we tell their story, which was placed on the public record. That I don't know if they know who they are. And she said that they had done a lot of research and they kept hitting, they hit a wall and didn't know how to go beyond. And we know how to go beyond. But then we have to speak to the system properly. Now, we've got our Moorish sovereign state standing. It stands. It's been standing since time immemorial, and it's standing now. Now all we have to do is continue to put out the proper documentation, and I'd like to add that, and this is information that was given not only by our Grand Chief, Pastor Day, but also by even by the subjects here, that whenever you want them, the subjects, to put something on the record, the process to get them to put anything on the record is going to be a writ of mandamus, and that's a part of this process also, a writ of mandamus. And the writ of mandamus should quote, because you're going to be speaking state to state, because this is a test. We know they're not a real state, but we're going to speak state to state. And it should quote their state constitution. It should quote the sovereign constitution that we gave them also, first and foremost, because they are under, all states are under that constitution that because we're the sovereign state that gave it to them and put them under it. We're not under it. We just enforce it and make sure that the things that we do are aligned with it. Islam nobility.
Sister Light, may I just add something to that? This Mellow Nocturnal Lawrence Bay. Give some confidence and momentum. What my brother and I did, Mikio, Tunica Lawrence Bay, we took a 10-hour drive down to Louisiana, down to where our land is. And once you locate it, you can go to the land patent offices there. You can even start with the city, county, and work your way up to state level if necessary, and walk your land. Know where it is and is located, because the United States Corporation Company think that you're too lazy to identify what's yours from the beginning before they came here. And they know that. That's one reason they label you a minority and claim that you're not able or capable, either mentally or spiritual, or managing your own estate. So they have to become trustees over your estate. And one thing I have to say, Taj and Sister Naila, they have a thumb drive. That all that information is on there, the process in terms of how to go about that. And as you said, we do have our government in place, where our government, through the treaty, can do disputes with the United States Corporation. They're not a government, okay? We just got to keep in mind that they're not a government. They're a corporation like Walmart, Kmart, McDonald's, or anyone else. They just act like they do, and people consent to keep giving them their power. Now, we as Moors, we own everything. Everything is in our title and our land rights. They know that, but they know most of us don't know it, and some of us that do know it, we just have to get the intestinal fortitude to get up and go get it and say, I'm claiming my estate back by my birthright. We have to get that settled in our minds, get that motivational power to begin to do things and take back what is ours.
Yes, absolutely. That's beautiful. Thank you, Nobility. I want us to actually take a look at, let me see if I can get this map to work here. Because even with the plats and things, generally, these maps will go, they've already measured everything. Yeah. And they will show you exactly where it is. I'm going to pull up a different, let's see, let me go back to the results and pull up a different one and see if I can get it to pull up the land piece, the description of the land, and then it will zero in on the map to show you where it is.
Exactly.
I'll just pick a random one. Let's pick this one and go ahead. And this is still grew and degrew family land.
Okay, I'm still here. Islam.
Okay. And I'm clicking on the land to see if this, let's see, data limitations. You cannot map the township with this land description. No township is available. This is 160 acres right here. Let's go back and see if we can get to fill up any of these pieces of land here. And it may or may not do it today. Generally, you can just click on one of these and it will take you right down on the map to where it is. And it will show you the squares that it's, and the measurements of it and everything. I'll try one or two more, and then if not, because I do want to show how this map works.
Yeah. I've been to the site before, and it was hard for me to get the maps to work.
Yes.
Well, Islam, you can go to your county or your land at, you said North Dakota, South Dakota. Once you talk with planning and zoning, and you give them the information, they can look it up. And you can get the county, the section, township, and range, or look that up and give them that information, but they already have that information.
Yeah, yeah. Everything has been done for us. I will say this, but we have to rebut what's being done to show that we're competent to do it ourselves. That's what this whole test is. Okay? Is can you match them point for point in your own sovereign manner and by your own sovereign state? Because our state just needs to claim. That's we need to put it on the public record properly by our own court, using our own sovereign money. Here's some that were, it says former Sessionne and Wahpeton reservation. So there's also some plots here that are on a couple of former reservations. And again, the reservations are nothing more than land that we Moors left for our descendants whom we had with other nations, because we had descendants with other nations. We amalgamated with other nations and procreated with them, so we had to leave, we had to take care of them while we went to sleep. So that's what the reservations are. It's still our land. So the map is not really doing too much right now on at this point, and it could just be my internet.
No,
but it might be the platform as well. So again, all Moors have. Now there's a question in the chat. Can we do a search for Trinidad and Tobago? Of course you can. You would have to find out. Yours might be on a different site, but then again, it might not be. It may be on a different site. You would have to look and see where your Bureau of Land Management records are, because, or what is the equivalent of your Bureau of Land Management. See, this just has the 50 states here, the 50 political states here at North America. It doesn't have the islands on this one. But that does exist. Now, I will say this, nobility, for the Moors that are on land or they're on other lands, if you're at Japan territory or China territory, I would encourage you to come to this website, because you're going to, and put in any state, any county, and put in your, the last name there of the conveyance instrument by which this land was moved around. Because last names are simply methods of conveyance. So, for example, I'll just pick Noble Rennie Clark. That's Justice Onlongo. I'm going to put in Clark and watch how much comes up for Clark in any state, any county. Because again, we all started here, and we'll search the patents, and it's going to be massive. And with the word Clark, you're gonna do it first with an E and then without an E. There are 100 or more pages, 100 or more pages, Justice Rennie, Justice Onlongo, for your of land. 100 or more pages. And that's Clark with an E. We haven't even done Clark without an E. And then Ruby Moore. So you might, we have some relatives in the same tribe. the Moor tribe, because my consort is Moor. Islam, my brother. I mean, and then you have to keep in mind to do your grandmother and your great-grandmother and your her great-grandmother. And you can do your fathers as well, your Moorish fathers, your Moorish mothers. And anytime you see, so let's get back to the remedy. Let's get back to the remedy, because that's why we wanted to bring this forward. Nationality is the order of the day. It is the first proper claiming of land on earth. Is everyone must be in their proper status, proper nationality. A termination of all corporate contracts. Let me tell you why that's so important with regard to land claims. The reason the termination of corporate contracts is so important is because anyone who is related to or claiming the status of this United States on the screen, this one that is the corporate one, you can't claim land under these patents. In other words, you can't claim the land because they were just hirees. The United States Corporation Company was hired to do this. You can't be a part of them and claim land too, because the land did not belong to them. They just recorded it. That's why the termination of all corporate contracts with them is so important.
Islam.
Islam nobility.
The United States of America is in minima, so they must have been in subject status when they printed this out.
Yes, they were. Yes, they were.
They were.
This was before 1861 and 1871. But there are some land patents that were created after that time period, and you will see that they put it in all capital letters. But that's still rebuttable. You rebut that the same way. Because either way that they were acting, whether they were hostile, because that's what all caps coming from them is, it's hostile war. It's nom de guerre, which is a war name. And whether it was hostile or not, it still has to be rebutted properly. And the first part of that rebuttal is you rebutting strictly in your sovereign status in red and all lowercase letters. Then you can start doing in capitis diminutio minima, media, and maxima, which is using capital letters and all of that. You can use as many capital letters as you want to use once you have established the law on the public record first, which is us in our sovereign status. That's why in red and all lowercase letters is so important. And then you go from there. And the fiduciary document stating that no matter what color or what form or tone, the tone is the color. Or I'm sorry, the tone is the tone is the color. And that's why, like when you go out on social media, if you put things in all capital letters, they say you're yelling. Because it's a violent thing. So we just take control of all of that and put it in its proper peaceful place. So then a universal commercial code. Now, the Moors that were in the story that we looked at, the Bullock family, they need to place a lien on the United States Corporation Company's ability to use their family name. What may happen when they do that is the sign may come down, but they have proof that the sign was there. But that would be appropriate, wouldn't it? That means they can't use that name anymore. That means that whoever it is that is a foreigner cannot say you're a bullet when you know that's not your name, your appellation. That's not who you are. Those ones that came there, that's not who they are. Islam nobility.
I'm consulate here in the UK. The process that you're describing here, do we do the same over here in the UK? I see the American
I would.
But the matter.
I would do it here, and then I would find out the equivalent office there, because they have an equivalent land office there.
Yeah, they have.
And even in Trinidad, they have an equivalent land office. See, this process was cookie cutter all over the earth. They went around the whole earth and did the same thing because we told them to keep it uniform. That's what uniform commercial codes is all about, is no matter where you go, they're the same for the most part.
So the process will be the same.
So the rebuttal is going to be pretty much the same in the UK as well, nobility.
I hear.
And then I'm glad you asked that question, nobility, because we all could do the same thing with Africa and the UK. We could look up family names over there and find the same, just a little slightly different spelling, and find the land over there that belongs to our ancestors. We have land and estates all over the earth. And then the Moors that are over there, that's going to connect us with our family over there, our kin. And then we can tell them, hey, this is what we all own here. What are we going to do with it? We're going to commit commerce. We're going to grow some food and get some things going. And then you don't even know what's buried under the land. Treasures forevermore. Under all land is treasure after treasure after treasure. When our Prophet Noble Ali said, children, you're just plain rich, he was right, except we're not children anymore. But he knew we were back then, and that we were not ready for this. Today we're ready. Wouldn't you agree?
Islam.
Okay. We all can look at the African Bureau of Land Management over in East Bay Nixon and find. We can go to Australia. We can go to Greenland. We can even go to Antarctica and look at their records and see our. We were everywhere. We were everywhere. But we had to conquer, and I use that word because it's a military term, but we're at peace. We're not at war. So we'll spell it slightly differently.
Islam.
We had to conquer the process here on this land first, because this is the land of the first. We're the primogenitors to everyone else. Yes, Islam nobility.
How do I navigate through their story that says that we came from the African continent and we have our slave master's name? How do we navigate through that lie to find true ownership?
Just find out when the slave master came there. When did the slave master show up? First of all, show us who the heirs and the descendants of the slave master is. Show us that. And then we'll say, well, when did you all get here?
Islam.
And then not only, and we can even do it without ever talking to them. We know we've been here since time immemorial. We can prove it. All we got to do is dig a little bit and you'll see some of our stuff. But that's already been done for us too. At Trinidad and Tobago, go back and look at some of the old geological records where people were calling it a gold rush or a rush for natural resources. And you'll start to see who was there first. They'll say the native people. Well, who were the native people who were there before the gold rush and before the natural resources and before Exxon oil and all of that? Before they came, when they came there, who did they see? Moors. And here's the thing, Justice Online goes. If they're saying that they brought you there from the other Africa over there, where did the Moors from the other Africa over there come from? They came from over here. And not the other way around.
Islam.
Everything started right here. That is why the war and the military arm for the whole earth was here.
Islam.
It all started here.
You're looking at it from a subject point of view and not a lord of the land point of view.
Yeah.
The only information you have was from the subject point of view. So that's why we thought we were subjects and slaves, but we wasn't. They were talking about themselves, not us.
Yeah.
We are the masters. We've been the
How is someone going to come here in 1860 or 1830 in the story that we put at the beginning of this? How's someone going to come here and see all these Moors on this plantation already doing what they do? And then say, oh, I'm a bullock now. Well, who were you before you came? Because the bullocks are here already. That happened repeatedly. That happened repeatedly. History, Justice Online goes, just a little bit of digging will refute that. Do you know what the population of Trinidad and Tobago is? I'm going to give you just another.
I've got to check it out.
Huh?
The population?
Yes.
It's about 1.4 million.
All right. Can we see the boats that y'all came on? Where are they?
The
How
what?
do you get 1-point-something million more in a boat? When did all this take place?
But it was not always 1.4 million. I guess it would have been less.
It would have been about 300 of y'all. Maximum. That's maximum.
Right.
And there's going to be a boat somewhere. And I haven't seen one yet. But we know about the ones that brought them. The military. We know about Ellis Island.
There is an area in Trinidad that they said that the English gave the land to the soldiers that fought in World War II. They call them Americans, and they gave them land in the southeastern area.
You are American.
Yeah, yeah.
And whenever they refer to American soldiers, we have to know that we were warring against ourselves. That's the only way we could be defeated. And we weren't really defeated because we're still here. What happened was we stopped being the state. And so an occupying state came in and started doing records, putting records on the public record, and we didn't rebut it properly, point for point. So, Justice Armando, there are so many ways you can rebut that. Okay, so let's say they routed you from the other Africa, Northeast, they next them to Trinidad. That's what they're claiming. Well, where did the Moors that's over there come from? And where were the people who was doing all the voting and taxing people all over the place? Where did they come from? And how long had they been here? See, when they talk about ships moving people back and forth, did you know that an affidavit is considered a ship or a vessel at law?
I'm not aware.
Yes. All affidavits are considered ships and vessels.
Wow.
And that's how people got moved around and property got supposedly moved around. And so that's how property is going to be moved back where it should be. And it's not really moving. It's proper process. Now, we don't have to run all around all over the place to get some processes. We got processes. That the process is a process. It has to be competent. It has to be done properly. It has to be done from the creditor perspective. And then now I'll say this, where property is concerned, Morris, and this is a story, this is some sharing information for a whole nother day. All property is given by appropriation. Okay? There's a little bit of noise coming from some of the background, just a little bit. I'm going to mute just a couple of the lines, unless you have a question or a comment. But all property, and we're preparing for all of this, all property is appropriated through the state government, and it is appropriated to the people. No property can be given unless it's appropriated. We're going to talk about what appropriation looks like in the near future. I don't really, those who are familiar with budgets and budgetary terms know what appropriation means. The Constitution is an appropriation document. It mentions appropriation. It says that the Constitution says in Article 1, I believe it's between Section 9 and I believe Section 13 and 14. It's Clause 13 and 14. Somewhere in there, it says that that in order to access the treasury, you must appropriate by law the treasury. Okay? And we have not been talking, we've been kind of holding what we're doing closer to our chest. But I'll say this about the demonstrations that we've been doing recently. We recently did an appropriations demonstration, and immediately we were directed to the state aspect of that, because our state is ready for appropriations by way of the Treasury, because we have all the documents and everything in place. And that is how domiciles and conveyances and police force, law enforcement, all of that stuff is appropriated. There has to be an outline and a budget, and it has to be appropriated to a state. It can't be appropriated to individuals. So that's why statehood was so important for us to put on the public record and to have the support of the people, of all of us, who agreed or who assent to that. And we've had so many more put Empire State of Morocco and Moorish National Republic federal government documents on the public record that there was no way we could ever be denied by anyone, because the people are speaking. And so now that that is in place, and we've done more than enough to prove our statehood on the public record, we're now working our way into commands, competent commands to the system in order to make that system do as commanded. But in our most recent appropriations demonstration that we did, it just gave us a clear view on how to get what we need. But we have to come together, continue coming together, because we're already together. There's so many Moors that are doing so much valuable work. And that includes the temples, the Moors that are in the temples, we honor them. The Moors that are free sundry Moors that are doing what they do, and the Moors that are doing the studying, the congressional work and the laws and the treaties and looking at the laws. And I will say this too, I wanted to bring this up today, and it's right in alignment with what we're saying. There are some sleeping Moors who they don't know they're Moors. Some of them do though, because I hear it in their language. They say, you know, they talk about Moors and Moors things and Islam. But there are Moors that are awake to the USC codes out there. And these Moors, whether they're asleep or awake, are starting to realize that they can use the law to get what they need, because the law is on our side, because we're the law. One of the Moors, and I'll put just a couple of links in the chat so that you can look at what they're talking about. We just want to honor them. It doesn't. They may or may not know that they're Moors. I'm not going to put their sites and things up on the public, you know, here on this format. But what they're doing is they're using USC codes in order to not use fiat. One of the Moors whose information I'm putting in the chat, I'm putting all of this here in the chat in this meeting. One of the Moors said that putting a down payment on a domicile is illegal according to the law, and he's right about that. Why would you do that when it's prepaid? He's right about that. And then another one of the Moors is looking at the USC codes and pointing out how mortgages were never supposed to be. And these are people who they don't even talk about nationality on their channel. So when you put our nationality and our creditor status with what they're learning, because see, what they're doing is they're showing people how to speak to the system. But they're doing it from a perspective of being in the system. And that's why it hasn't really, when you look at their videos, you can tell that they're giving great information, but it has not resulted in them living lavishly. Okay? It has not. And it won't, and they don't know this yet. They'll get a few wins.
California.
Welcome. Yes, welcome, Nobility. Thank you for being here. they will get little wins here and there, which happens. But then the thing that they really want, they're not going to be able to acquire it without being a state, because you're talking to a state. States speak to states. Individuals cannot speak to a state, just like a corpse can't speak to us directly. Corpses have to use corporation language and speak to another corporation. They can't speak directly to us. And we don't speak directly to them. We speak by affidavit, and we speak to whatever conveyance method we need to speak to. Generally, that conveyance method is in all capital letters. So we use our Empire State of Morocco capital letters to speak to them. It's very powerful and very effective. Very powerful and very effective. So the links that I put in the chat, they won't be under this video, because I don't want to, you know, I don't really want to put that under the video, but it's in the chat for those who've attended this session. They're talking some powerful stuff, and it sounds great, but they're having the same issues that many Moors are having, whereby we know this is the law, but the manifestation and the actual possession of it is right there. We just know that we have to unlock the right keys. So when we put our nationality in the documents that we put on the public record and our statehood forward and add what these guys are talking about, it's done, Morris. It's a wrap. We are unstoppable. We cannot be stopped. All land, all natural resources, all commerce belongs to the Moors. And I want to say something really quickly to the subject. We thank the subjects for all that they're doing. We're very grateful for their work. We have some great subjects. They are honorable, and they're doing all the right things in guiding, assisting us in getting where we're going. Islam nobility.
Consul again here in the UK, can we use our appellation also to reclaim the land, apart from the slave master land?
So the Prophet, Noble Jew Ali, said don't throw away your old name because you have an estate in that name. He's right about that.
Mm-hmm.
He's right about that. And because there are a lot of Moors who find that to be uncomfortable. So my suggestion to you would be, and to any Moors who, because I am still like Tajiri Bey, okay? I will always be like Tajiri Bey, and if the ancestors change it to L or one of the other appellations or titles of nobility, I'm good with that. And that goes on my documents, but I ensure that I introduce my court action as the creditor to the vast estate. And that's Pauline, Denise, Lawhorn, Emmanuel, Richie, and it can be more on the end because that is my consort, so that's part of our estate as well. Or it can just be Richie, because that's my, or it can be Lawhorn, or it can be Lassick, because those are my my matriarchal unit names. So, yeah, to answer your question, if you want to put it on there, just ensure that you introduce yourself according to your estate. See, we honor our foremothers and forefathers when we use the appellations that they gave us, knowing that those did not come from any slave master. They never were a slave master. They've never been a master a day in their existence. Never. We have always been the master. And when we get that into our spirit, we will honor our mothers who were sovereign on the day that they gave us those sovereigns on appellations. But it was our issue that there was a harbor master at the end of the bed, the delivery table, waiting to enslave and to get our consent to be enslaved. We have to accept that responsibility and fix it so that we can go ahead and honor our mothers and fathers and the sovereign-born appellations that they were given and that their mother gave them, and so on and so forth. But like Secretary Bay, I usually say I am sovereign living justice, Pauline Denise Ritchie, in capitis nationall, in red, in copia persona juris, in copia solo, in copia jure, and then I'll say after that, my free chosen sovereign appellation is like Secretary Bay, in capitis nationall, in red, because see, if you don't put the proper qualifications on your sovereign-born appellation, the United States Corporation Company will capitalize that too, and it'll be just as corrupt as, because it's being issued by them instead of us doing it by affidavit and by court action. They corrupt stuff. They corrupt things. We cannot let them do that any longer. So almost we should be using our titles of nobility, knowing that the titles of nobility is an office. It's an office. The Bays are the law enforcers. The L's are the law makers, and on and on. Those are offices as well as titles of nobility. So we should be using them.
Wow. I hear you.
Yeah, it's fine. And at some point, you know, like when my brothers and I talk, because many of you know that I have brothers who are active Moors, very active Moors. When we talk, we call ourselves the Ritchie Bays, because Ritchie is our sovereign-born appellation, and we're the Bays. We know that. So. And then my matrilineal appellation is Lawful, as in someone who yells the law really loudly and broadcasts it all over the earth. Okay. So are there any other questions, comments, wisdom, etc.?
Yes, ma'am.
And have we addressed the issue properly with regard to remedies? On proper rebuttal of what is being put out there. The Bullock family, we honor them. I don't know them. I just saw the story and said that the remedy is available for them, and they already own the land. They just need to claim it properly, starting with their nationality on the public record.
Islam
nobility.
Yes, Empress. What was that address on the Research Globe? Globe Records.
This is the Bureau of Land Management. It's https://glo records.blm, which stands for Bureau of Land Management, .gov. And I'll put that in the chat again as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Empress.
And we just, Islam, thank you, nobility. And we just take those affidavits and court actions that they've put there and put them in our own red and all lowercase letters and put the fiduciary document with that, and then create sovereign titles and use the meets and bounds that are on there. I mean, everything is already done for us. All we have to do is actually get up and get to typing and get to working, get claiming and speaking the law. It's prepaid. Yes, mobility.
I was reading about the Ukraine and the and they said the United States is going to kick them out of the SWIFT banking.
Yes. Yeah, I heard that. Yes.
So the ancestor spoke to me and started telling me to look and research it. And they had a form of the MT-103 to where it's a receipt to where you can do global transfers from anywhere across any border with any currency. So it got to me thinking.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just love it when we just, the air is just, oh man, you all are just, you just own it. You're just on top of the business here. Okay, so what you just mentioned is, and I'm going to put it on the screen so that the Moors can see what you just mentioned. You just mentioned the MT. Let me just make sure that it gets on here. Let's see. We have some of the MTs on here. I don't think all of them are showing up on this document. But this is what you're talking about here. MT 600, MT 700, MT 800, MT 900, MT 910. You said MT 103?
Yes.
Okay. The reason that I did not put MT 103 on here is because MT 103 was for individuals. Okay. And whenever what we're doing when we do our documents is we're looking at it from an overarching state format, so that our state can do things. And I'm glad you brought that up because MT 103 would be one that you would use for your individual SWIFT transaction.
Okay.
Okay.
I was speaking of the state as well, sending it to our bank to send to any other bank as a wire transfer.
Yes.
The MT 103 transfer receipts and document it with the court action and the Council of All Contracts and the fiduciary document, yes, so we can prove that we sent a transfer from our banks to their banks, and we can receive the funds from their bank. So that's where my study is at right now. I'm trying to open up a lot. Says me. Open sesame. So that's where I'm at.
Yes. So I've done some study on that, and that's how they ended up these codes. Just one moment. There's some noise coming from somewhere. There's a couple of the okay. Just a moment. Yeah, so I've done the study on that nobility. Thank you for bringing that up. And on this document will be under this video. It actually, this is our SWIFT document right here, and it says it up here at the top: Sovereign Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunications. That's the name of our system. This is your system.
Okay.
Whereas theirs is a Society Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunications, or something similar. And it's stamped here by a witness court, an inferior court. But it says 1 gold U.S. dollar equals 1 gold back Moorish sovereign dollarium. So we are doing the study as quickly as we can on that whole SWIFT system. It's a lot simpler than I thought it was. simply because all they did was send emails and then take the receipt to a bank, and the bank would say, okay. And here's the crazy part about that is when they took the money was not in the bank until they took the receipt, and then the bank would create the money into the system based on the receipt. So it wasn't like that the money went shooting from one state to the other or one nation to the other. It's that on one end they would create a receipt, and then the one would take that receipt to the bank and the bank would create the money out of thin air based on the receipt and give it the receipt number and all of that. And maybe even call to confirm that, yes, this SWIFT transaction came from the proper state.
Right.
And generally they did that by a specific email. And the email had an affidavit attached to it by court action.
How about that? Yeah.
Thank you, Nobility, for bringing that up. We you know, the ancestors have been
Yeah, they try to kick you out at any time. They don't want you to talk.
So the ancestors put us on a super fast learning curve with regard to the banking system. And we knew that this had to be done as well, that whole SWIFT transaction piece. When we start looking at individual SWIFT transactions, we will put out another one like that with the MT 103 and 104 and I believe 106 or something like that. There's several codes that they use in order to get the transactions from one place to the other. These were the ones for entire states and, you know, treasury markets, metals and commodities, liens, traveling instruments such as traveler's checks and things like that, cash management, all of that. Treasury, when they talk about treasury markets, they're talking about anything from the treasury, because that's the one you're talking about, where the treasury will issue. So like when we send an email to the treasury will issue the amount into the SWIFT system with the parameters that are set, and the parameters have to be competent parameters. And these codes are a part of that, the competent parameters. But there are other things that go with these codes. And it's not a whole lot of information. It's about maybe between 8 and 13 lines of information, including appellation, the territory that it's coming from, and all of those things that you put with that in order for it to be a valid SWIFT transfer, and from our state to a different state. So like when people come here from other places like China and all of that in the corporate world, quote unquote, and they come here with a bunch of their money, quote unquote, they will take their money to a bank, and they have to do, they can't do just a regular deposit. They have to do what's called a special deposit. And in some cases, they'll come over with a letter of credit from their state or their country saying that this is one of our citizens and they have this much credit, can you exchange the credit in the system? And this is their SWIFT receipt. And so some of them come over here with 2, 3, 4 million, whatever. But it's based on what they earned over there. So I'll say this about all of that is we have to have a justification for the funds appearing. That's the part that we were kind of like looking at, but not really. But now we're really looking at it because we weren't ready to look at that yet. We needed to set things up first. But we have to, there has to be a reason for the funds to appear. And when I say a reason, the reason that we get statements every month from those people that were previously doing business as bill collectors is that's a receipt. We are supposed to be able to take that receipt and turn it into money because we're the creditors. And that goes for utilities and everything else. And those links that I put in the chat here, those people are learning how to do stuff like that. But it's only going to happen for them once or twice, and then the system is going to say, hold it, you need the nationality piece. And again, I will give them credit. They are using the codes and statutes to their advantage. And we can put the codes and statutes in there, but we have to bring our state and the supreme law of the land with us. And when we do that along with what they're doing, the system will do as commanded. They're learning how to speak to the system, and we're learning, and we've learned how to subdue the system and have dominion over it. Because, see, that had to happen first before any of the other processes would work for us in the way they should. Because those processes are not working for citizens so well. But that's because it's not really designed for citizens. It's really designed, the system is designed for the Moors. When you mentioned Ukraine and Russia and all of that acting and drama, because it's acting.
Yeah. Yeah.
I saw a video where they had cleared that whole place of foreigners. And all they had left was some security there, securing buildings that are Moorish buildings. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And now they're waiting on the Moors to show up. That's really all they doing is security guard work. It's not a war like that. It's not a war. They're actors, and they have to do that. Okay.
That's just a playing out.
Islam.
Yes. Islam nobility. Yeah, they are. Yes, Empress.
I have a question. So when you mentioned about the funds showing up and give a justification as to the reasons why they would liens and the fiduciary taking back the control over the estates that we lien, is that a reason for funds to show up in our accounts?
Yep.
All right.
Yes. Now, with the liens, we are going to have to, as a state, decide how we want that to appear in our account. The only reason that we've not talked about that to this point is because we had to set the accounts up. They're set up now. There's a couple of other things we need to do, and we're in the process of doing those things where appropriation is concerned, so that the credits can be properly appropriated and you can use them in your territory. That's a constitutional appropriation situation. Again, we're not under the Constitution, but we're aligned with it. So we don't blend with it, we harmonize. Harmonies keep separate.
Islam, and that's all about this new energy. It's harmony.
Yes, harmony. Not blending and amalgamation. Harmony.
Islam.
And I want to thank Sister Myra. Sister Myra, I don't know if you all have heard of her, but Sister Myra, we send high honors to you. My first encounter with her was recently on YouTube, on YouTube social media.
Yes. I'm sorry. Yes.
And she is, yes, she gave me the overstanding of this is the age of harmonizing but not blending. And she wasn't even talking about banking, but it applies to that too. It applies to everything we're doing. When she said that, I about fell out of my chair. Because I'm like, that's the language that we were looking for. That's great language right there. Don't blend, don't amalgamate, but harmonize. When it comes to these subjects here on the land, we don't blend in with them and use their stuff because they really don't have anything to give, you know. They're just custodians over our stuff. So we harmonize. We hover above. Just like in the beginning when God created the heaven and the earth was without form and void, and he hovered. And by he, I mean we. We hovered, all of us. The patriarchal energy hovered over the earth. So that's all we're doing. Now, let us know for sure, because I heard one of the Moors say we shouldn't have to do all those processes. We actually do. We have to learn them and know them and do them competently. And if anyone has room in their cranial, I was going to say cranial cavity, but a cavity indicates emptiness, and our brains are not empty. Our heads are not empty. But we used to say that back in the day. But if anyone has room in their brain and in their consciousness and subconsciousness for this information, it's us. Islam nobility.
Yes. I think of it more as we need to come together as one voice and start doing these processes and making some real moves, going out there to the public and recruit more Moors like the nation did, to start getting on top of our soapboxes and start explaining the Moorish science to people and really spreading out the word, start giving more people, because we need more peacemakers. Because I've been through a few tests myself where I claimed the property and they sent me to the prison camps for burglary of a habitation, and I stood on my square. And I stood there 30 days and they couldn't do nothing with me because I wouldn't cave in, I wouldn't bow down, I wouldn't give my fingerprint, I wouldn't sign anything without saying all rights reserved, strong no touch. Even they were trying to give me an attorney and I told them I refused. I present myself. They want to give me one anyway. They couldn't do nothing with me, so they had to let me loose. Because when they charged me with the burglary of a habitation, I had 21 officers on my land. I called for a constable. I said, this is a civil matter. This is in my early stages when we were conversing in the Moorish times. And I told the police that it was a civil matter, and I explained to the constable. And he told the lady who the property was for, or thought it was for, because he abandoned the property. I put in my paperwork and put it on the public record. I showed him my paperwork. He said, there's nothing you can do with him. He's in his rights. And he looked at me and said, anything you need? I said, no. And then he bowed to me. I said, thank you for
Islam.
So the next day, I'm feeling on top of the world, And I'm proving to my son and my daughters that I'm really talking about moral science because they think I'm out to lunch. The next day, in the evening time, they came back and charged me with the charge of burglary of a habitation. I said, you just came yesterday and they told you it was civil. He said, yesterday was civil, today is criminal. And they brought me to jail. So
I'll say this about that, nobility. First of all, high honors on your demonstration. High honors because you are absolutely within your rights. But I will say this about that and about the demonstrations all of us have done is, yes, we're right. There are some things that we have to add to what we're doing in order to be all the way right and all the way competent with our demonstration. The statehood piece is a huge part of it. That's number one. And number two, the appropriations piece. The appropriations piece, because our ancestors want proper documentation in terms of the value of the estate needs to be on the public record. And it needs to work with the system that we have. It's our system. So we have to properly appropriate that which is ours. We have stepped back from having so many calls because we're demonstrating appropriation even as we speak. And we're continuing to put the documents together so that appropriation happens on a massive scale. A massive scale. And I'm just grateful that the ancestors are giving us the information that we need in order for that to happen. Appropriations is the key to the treasury. And that's constitutional. That's according to the Constitution. Okay. And there's nothing we can't have, and there's no limit to the amount we can have of everything that's on this land right now and everything to come when we appropriate competently. And that required us to put ourselves forth and being the state. Because as you know, the one that was doing business as Secretary of State was supposedly the in charge of all abandoned property. Mm-hmm. Why is that? Because all property belongs to the state, but not that state, this state. Mm-hmm. And we had to know that and put that competently on the public record, because many of us were demonstrating individually, knowing that what we're doing is lawful. Mm-hmm. And that's why I say high honors for what you're doing and for the demonstration that you did. And so when they switched it then to criminal, okay, now you were right and they were right about civil, the civil matter. But what made it criminal in their system, it's not a criminal, you're not a criminal. They don't have the authority to call you a criminal, okay? And you're not a criminal according to your own state. But what they were using to say that is what, and this is the part about the processes that we need to know, okay? So that they can't even say that. The reason they said, oh, it's criminal, is because they then used a state court action to charge because no state had been claimed. You didn't claim a state.
No, I didn't.
Okay, because the state has to own the property, not you and not me.
Right. And that was my dilemma right there. And once I figured that
that was the dilemma. Yeah.
That's my. So
it's done, nobility.
I'm about to go reclaim my property because they burnt it, sister. Like they burnt my property. And they couldn't do nothing with it. They couldn't move in it or anything like that because I put the proper paperwork. All I had to do is put the instead of myself, and let the state grant it to me as a consular office and make it a consular office for more to come to get the consular court going so I can free my people from these prison camps. That's what I'm going to use it for. And
so I will say this about that. Yes, you're right about that. The same thing has happened in this territory in a way where all of the properties that I put documentation and paperwork in for are vacant. No one can move in them. And they're buildings. They're buildings because I know that we need to govern. And we need the space. Huge buildings. No one has moved in them, and one of them I claimed 3 years ago, and to this day, it's a beautiful building and no one's in it. Because we've got, and the other building, the Moors know about that building, that the hybrids come on and they think they're talking to their corpses, but they say, how come you haven't done anything about First Avenue, Pauline? And you know, they're not talking to us. We know that.
Oh, Islam.
But that building is marked vacant because there's another piece that I need to put. So those who were unlawfully occupying it had to move out. And they did. They were out of there in 10 days.
Yep.
They had to get out because they were unlawfully occupied. And what that told me was that I did everything right up until the cleaning of the building, that there was something that I still needed to know about proper cleaning of it. That's when the ancestors then started to put it into our heads and bring it into our ether that we need to demonstrate appropriation of the building. We need to appropriate it.
Mm-hmm.
And now that I'm looking at how appropriation is done, I'm like, there is absolutely nothing we cannot have and do.
Exactly.
Nothing. And I was gonna keep this piece a little close. I'm still gonna keep it close for now. But we'll talk about appropriations and how it's done in the coming weeks. But I want to do the demonstration first. I did the one demonstration. It was a smaller level demonstration. And as soon as I did that, the state demonstration came forth, and they said, okay, you need to do it this way because you all are a state. And of course, when the smaller demonstration that I did was a few $100,000 from the treasury.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I did that demonstration, that's when the ancestors said, okay, you need to be up higher because of the documents and all of that. And so when they gave me the information for the next level is there's an endless amount of finance on the next level. And we're all going to have to get our resumes ready so that we can fill the positions, all of them. And when I say all, I mean every position you can think of on this landmass needs to be filled by a Moor. And I mean starting yesterday. And that's with a salary. But the salary and everything has to be in lawful money, or else the stoppage will happen that has happened with them.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's no more appropriation that's going to the corpses and corporate. We can see that, though. We can see that. And so only what's necessary to keep the heirs in a safe place in terms of, you know, food and things like that. You know, basic minimal appropriations are going on, and we you know, that's a part of us emerging as the state and being who we really are. But other than that, because the authority to appropriate has been returned to us because we put the right competent systems in place, or really just uncovered the systems. on a massive scale because so many Moors were leaning by court action. And that just uncovered all the resources, and now appropriations has been put right in front of us competently, and we're just going to demonstrate it competently. We're ready. And I cannot wait to show that piece to you, because most of y'all know about it. It just hasn't registered yet that's because it didn't register. I mean, you know, there's a few Moors out there who've shown me paperwork that I've seen where they know about appropriations, but there's a way to do it. It has to be done through the state. And it has to be a state that's acknowledged by the system. So, you know, I can't wait to show it to you. But I want to demonstrate it first and then show it. Y'all know I like to demonstrate. I can't just talk about something that I haven't demonstrated. That's not usually how we do things. We like to demonstrate it first and then talk about it.
Islam?
Islam nobility.
Back to the land. Is there affidavit in the chat? A document to Is there affidavit where the land is concerned?
Where which part is concerned?
In the youth, where the land, to repossess the land, is there an affidavit?
There's not an affidavit of any specific one. There's all the ones that we put under this document. You can use those same ones.
Okay.
Under this video, there's about 40 affidavits, and some people don't feel like they want to do those. Okay, you don't have to do them, but to whom much is given, much is required. We know that, and that's why we've taken the time to do the study and implement those 40-something affidavits. If I were you, nobility, and you and I actually probably need to work together, you and I, and also Justice Onlongo for Trinidad Territory, and then, you know, the consulates that are on the other parts of AMEXM, like Japan, Thailand, Trinidad, the UK, French Guiana, Indonesia, and those places. We need to probably work one-on-one together so that we can ensure that the documents translate properly for the system. Now, the system is the same simply because the UK ran all of their stuff up to Canada and then down to New York and DC.
Okay, I see. Mm-hmm.
Yes, they sure did. That's why they were claiming Canada.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because they knew they had to be in alignment with what we were doing here.
Mm-hmm. Well, I have to,
so they're using the same system.
Okay, what's on the chat? What's on the chat? There's a document to the land title that I've put on the public record already.
What's the what?
There is a document in the chat to the land title.
Okay. You know what? I'm actually gonna take the time right now to go to YouTube and put the link to that document in the chat right now. Let me see. Let's see. Let me just. Just one moment. pull that up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I don't see it here, and I know I put it there. I'm gonna, Justice Consul, I will email it to you. Can you text me your email? I know I have your email in there. I don't remember it right offhand. But can you text me your email or if you don't mind, put your email in the chat so I can send the document to you?
Mm-hmm.
I'll send it directly to you. Confirm. And then if you have, I believe you have my number. Do you have my number, Justice Consul? Because I can tell it to you if you want me to.
I do have it. I do have your number.
Okay.
But I'll just put the email in the chat and you can do it that way.
Yes, sure. Absolutely.
Islam Empress, this is Sister Angel. Speaking of phone numbers, I did give you a call earlier this week. I know you're a very busy lady, so whenever you have a moment, I would love for you to contact me back. Islam.
Islam Empress. Let me just take a look. Yeah, I am, and I don't always get the opportunity to call Morris back immediately. But I will call you back, Empress, and I apologize for not getting back to you right away. And
I understand. I understand. It's a lot. I understand that, yes.
Yeah.
They've been charging me the
let's see. Let me go to my email. I'm just going to put it here. Are there any other questions or comments or anything else that we need to discuss today?
Islam Empress.
Yes, Islam Mobility.
They're putting us in the movies now. They're telling our stories in the movies. And I was watching the movie Harder They Fall, and I can see how the Moorish is represented in the movie if you know who we are and know thyself. They had their own town, their own way of living, separate, not equal.
Yes. Yes.
And
yes.
Regina King was on the track with a horse, and she was dressed like a postmaster. I don't know if anyone noticed that. To stop the train. Because only the postmaster can stop the transmit of any mail package, which was Idris Elba's. He was in a vault, not a cage, a vault, like gold.
Wow. See? Listen, do not tell me that they do not know our story already. They know who we are. But we had to put it on the public record and say who we are before they could go get beyond that oath that they took. They took an oath of silence.
Yeah. So now
they took an oath of silence.
I see it. And they had to put a levy against the settlers from coming in because the sheriff / the mayor gave consent for get the land for free or pre-settlement, the land drive back in the 1800s for everybody to come in. It only took one more to get permission to confiscate all the land, and that's what the land rush was about. So they wanted to put a levy or a tax or tide against the government corporation for doing illegal acts and bringing in hordes of people to their land who the Moors own. So I think
now you know a levy ain't nothing but a lien. Come on now. You know a levy ain't nothing but a lien.
Ain't nothing but a lien in the court action, and they needed $50,000, so they robbed the white bank for the money so they can use, well, not real money, but their corporate notes so they can levy a tax against them because they didn't have enough gold-backed dollars or counterfeit notes that they was using to pay for the levy. So that's why they had to rob banks to get the fake money. They needed more fake money instead of they using their gold-backed money that they had.
Are they not telling the truth about what really happened?
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
Are they not talking about what we're doing today?
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. So
that's why we had to have our own money.
Mm-hmm. And they made a comment about that, Empress Light. They looked at their money and said, that's how much $35,000 is. He says it's not how much, it's what you can buy with it. So they used the notes because they was building their own, I guess the settlers was building their own commerce and they was building stuff around and they need their own notes. They was passing their own notes around. So yeah, I seen all that and I said, okay, they're telling our
And what's the name of that movie so we can all watch it?
The Harder They Fall with Regina King.
Okay, I'm going to have to check that one out. I'm going to have to check that out.
Yeah.
Because, you know what? We got this. We got this. We got it, y'all. All we got to do is keep coming together. Now, earlier, one of the Moors said something about, about going out and recruiting Moors and all of that. Listen, when we get this, as we continue to remember and demonstrate our banking and our ability to properly and competently claim domiciles and conveyances, we ain't going to have to talk to nobody about more science. They're going to be coming anyway.
Exactly.
That's something the ancestors told me. Yeah, because I was thinking the same thing about, because I grew up in Christianity, and we used to go out knocking on doors. Our parents had us out there knocking on doors and handing people Christian paperwork, tracts, and talking about, have you heard of, asking them questions, doing court actions on them, didn't even know that's what we were doing. Have you heard about Jesus Christ? Have you been saved? And, all of that. And I'm not knocking the Christians, because we love Christians. I got Christians in my bloodline and kinship line, or they think they're Christians. Or anyway, oops. But I'm gonna say this, and they're Christians as long as they say they're Christians. So let me clear that up. But I thought we would have to do that with more science. The ancestors said, you just get on these documents and get on this paperwork and get on this study and demonstration and sharing the information so that you all can claim this estate properly. And when you claim the estate properly, they didn't have any problem getting most of those modern Europeans under the United States Corporation Company. When they started giving out, they didn't have a problem getting Moors under there, thinking they were citizens when they started talking about domiciles and conveyances and stuff.
Right.
And today, you still having problems getting Moors to admit who they are because they still think they can get something under them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And some Moors are only coming for that. And I'm not even knocking that because it's rightfully theirs. But the records do say, seek ye first the kingdom, and all of that will be added unto you. We know that already. We see it. Yeah.
Yep.
What'd you say, Nobility?
I said the ancestor made the system so they can tell between the Moors and the hybrid subjects because they look just like us, like Moses did the Pharaoh. They couldn't tell a difference from a Moor or a hybrid that was made with a Caucasian. So they had to build a system to tell a difference.
Yes.
And we had to.
And the system looks at documents.
Yep. And the system had to tell between the Moors and the subjects. So that's why we got to be constantly proving ourselves who we are, because the Moors know thyself when the hybrids that look just like us does not. So we just have to access the system and let the system know that we are the true Moors and not the subjects.
That is where the in red and all lowercase letters comes from.
Right.
Because even when you're in those, listen, I had a Moor tell me just today that they were listening to some of the hybrids talking about, you know, trying to get things and things like that and processes they should use. But one thing they kept saying in these forums, these foreign, you know, the subject forums, I won't say foreign, I'll say the subjects, they always tell them, just don't write in red. You can write in any other color, but don't write in red, because they know that only we're supposed to be doing that.
Right.
In all lowercase letters, yes, that's the Moors. So,
yep. So that's
when
why
even the ones that were doing business at Supreme Court, they don't see faces because they don't hold a court like that. They look at documents. And they can tell who you are by the document. If your document looks like a citizen document, if you fill out a form to get in there, they're going to say, okay, everybody's the same. All men are created equal.
Yeah.
That's where that comes from.
That's what they want you to think, so you can lower your jurisdiction. But we're not created equal, and you're not ashamed to say that. You know?
We're the creator. The creator is not equal to the creation.
Matt Damon said on a crypto commercial, the fortune favors the braves. And we are the home of the braves.
Yeah.
Our fortune. So I'm seeing all these different clues on the television. They're saying that they, you know, turning around. The Ukraine, the United Kingdom reigns.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. That's why there's a big old Gog and Magog type of situation brewing over
theatricals.
Yeah. On that theatrical stage.
Right.
And our job is not to be distracted by that and not to pay attention to that. Well, all we need to do is look at it to see what applies to the Moors, because all they're doing is acting out what's really happening on paper. Right. For us, it's happening on paper, but we're not at war.
No, we're not.
And we're the sovereign.
So
and
it's
they're
all
trying
good.
to gain sovereignty from us, you know.
Of course. Well, and that's the only way they can get it. That's the only way they can get any semblance of it, because they can't even get sovereignty from us. They can pretend to be, you know, but pretending will not make you. I mean, you know, it won't make you anything but who you really are. Still.
Exactly.
So anyway,
that's why since kids, they've been having us pretending, you know, make believe, Sesame Street and Mr. Rogers. Keep pretending, keep make believing, having a make believe friend. Yeah. So they can put the spell over us. So now we have to break.
Oh yeah.
And it's broken.
Well, that's why courts call themselves sentencing people, because they're putting it's a spell. So they do sentencing.
Right.
But that's our job. That's our job. That's our job. So with that being said, we will go ahead and adjourn here, and we will come back again on Thursday with some more information. In sometime in the next few weeks, we'll start talking about appropriation, because that's something we actually have to sit down together and discuss as the state how we want to appropriate. And it's really already done for us, but we have to manifest it, and it's good that we manifest that in a particular manner. So we'll show you what we have, and we can agree on it, or we can discuss it and mix it up and fix it up, and however, you know, we'll get around to that in the next few weeks about appropriation, because that's where everything comes in at. Everything that the whole estate comes together at appropriation. Yep. One thing I can say is that there's nobody that has to do without on our land. There's no one that has to do without. And where appropriations are concerned, we can all have whatever we want. We can have it 10 times over if we want to. But we just have to agree to be together. We have to do it together. We have to stay together. We're together now. We're coming together even more, and we're all in talk and communication with other Moorish organizations, you know, and Moorish tribes, and, you know, Moorish governments. If they say they're a government, then who are we to argue? We just get right on, keep on in there with them. You know, we know that we are the Moorish National Republic Federal Government. We know we're the Empire State of Morocco, the Moorish American Consular Court, the Moorish American Consulate, always have been, always will be, and we're grateful for that. So, with that being said, peace and grand rising to the sovereign, original, indigenous, natural, divine heirs, Islam.
Islam. Peace and grand rising.
Grand rising.
Grand rising. It's a wrap.
Grand rising.
Grand rising.
It's a wrap.
Grand rising.
It's a wrap.
Islam. Islam.
Yeah.
It is a wrap.
It is a wrap.
It's a wrap.
Stick a fork.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Islam.
Peace and love.
Peace and love.
Peace and love.
Peace and love, nobility.
Islam.
Peace and love.